I gave myself permission to be graduating to the next level. I gave myself permission to experience that kind of success. Some of that too is when people ask, how do you move to another level? One of the things that I think is really important is to prove to yourself, and put self in, quotes there. It's like, you have a car, you have a laptop, you have a phone, and you have a self. It's a possession. And I think we have to prove to ourselves that we've earned it. And so there's this sense in which, like, when success comes quick and when success comes easy, which sometimes it does for all of us, that can actually be our biggest detriment.
Welcome to the Real Better Life podcast, where people that are writing stories worth telling share their knowledge, wisdom, and perspective to help you go further, faster as you move to your better life. Over to your hosts, Dave Ness and Rob Alkema.
It's always so amazing to be here, by the way. Like, when I walk out the front door, I'm like, it's a blessing to live here.
Dude, totally. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I love this place, and we were just talking about that yesterday.
Yeah.
Right? When people move away from Denver, or they're like, I don't know, I kind of want to move. And it's just like, what's wrong with you?
What were you thinking? Where'd you go wrong?
This is such an awesome place to live.
I've always thought a really good day elsewhere is like a bad day here.
Yeah, agreed.
And then a really bad day here is not so bad, because you just look west at the mountains and you're like, yeah, it's not that bad.
Exactly. Yep. I'm 100% with you.
That's so good.
Well, so today the topic of conversation is, it's funny, we got all these notes written down. What are we calling this?
I don't think we have a name for it.
We're going to talk a lot about identity today.
We are going to talk about identity.
I know that. Let me provide some backdrop and then we'll just dive right in.
Cool.
So as we were coming up with ideas of some of the different things we could talk about, one of the things that I think resonated for both of us was this idea of going back to your personal experience getting started in real estate and unpacking, like, what was that like and how did your career evolve over time? And one of the things that we've noticed, because we've gotten to watch, not only did you go through what you personally went through, but you've seen, at this point, literally dozens and dozens and dozens of other people launch careers, evolve through their careers. Some people are still really early in their evolution. Some people, a couple of the people we work with, they're 5, 7, 10 years into their evolution as a real estate agent. And one of the things we've noticed is that there are different levels of production that people accomplish, right? And so we talk a lot about, in your first year at a place like Thrive, you should absolutely do a minimum of 12 transactions,
12. Yep.
Scale that to at least 18 by your second year. And then in your third year, scale that to 24 or more. And in Denver real estate, out of 17,000 plus individual agents, if you're over 24 transactions personally, that puts you in the top 1% of all real estate agents. And I think you can confidently say, like, yeah, I'm committed to excellence at my craft.
Yep.
Right. But then 100%. What we've noticed is that some people will get like right up to that 24, 22, 23, 24, 25 mark, and then they just sort of stall out.
Yep.
And they never really break through to that next level, which we've seen that next level. It's not like going from 24 to 25. It's going to 30 plus.
Yeah. Usually.
Right? And then there's that group of people typically does somewhere between like 30 to 40 transactions a year.
Yeah.
And then there's another level that happens where it's more uncommon for somebody to go from that 30 to 40 range to then 50 plus.
Yeah.
Right. And then
breaking through the ceiling of 50.
Yep. 50 plus is pretty rarefied air. And then you'll get some really, really, really special people that go on to do like 75 plus.
And beyond, yeah.
And that's just stupid.
Yeah. Well, and at that level too, and even really at the 50 level, you're usually, not always, but usually getting into some type of support and team around you to handle some things.
You have to, or your quality of life is going to suck, or you're going to lose your sanity.
It takes a nosedive.
Yeah. Yep. So what we're going to talk about then is we're going to talk about, it's through your experience, what did it look like for you to move through those levels, and what changed as you went from one to the next to the next.
Yeah.
And then also if you could share some things on what you've observed in other people, like why do some people get stuck and why do some people, go on and hit another level. And so I guess this will be how to unlock different levels of your real estate career and what's required at each of those.
Yeah, I love it. Maybe that's the name.
We'll go with that until we come up with something better.
Unlocking the next level. I don't know.
Yeah, I love it. So let's start in 2009. you got your real estate license in 2007.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And you were coming out of a really successful stint in commercial development, and then the housing bubble burst.
Yep.
And
that was fun.
Yeah. And then bankruptcy ensued, and then you reluctantly moved into residential real estate. And from 07 and 08, you were actually working with a partner.
Yeah.
And you don't even know what your transactions were because most of the stuff was logged into your partner's name, not in your name.
It was, back then I didn't even understand that it mattered.
Way to go, rookie.
It's like, whatever, let's just sell some real estate, make some money. And so everything was logged under his username and password or ID or whatever in the MLS. So it's from 2007 to 2008, professionally, I don't exist.
Yeah. And then in 09, that's the first time that you were truly solo.
Yep.
And let me walk through these numbers real quick that you just shared with me. In 09, you did 23 transactions personally.
Yep.
The next year you did 18.
Yep.
The next year you did 26. 2012, you jumped from 26 to 43 transactions. Then 2013, 54, then 51, and then 43. And 43 was in 2015. And that's actually when Thrive already existed, but Thrive became more than just you and Courtney crushing transactions. And Doug, that's right. And it actually became a brokerage.
Yeah.
Right.
It became an actual company.
Yeah. And Tim came in and Zach came in and Seth and Kevin and
exactly.
And then the rest is history. So there were some pretty big jumps. So take us back to 2009 and going solo for the first time. You're coming out of bankruptcy. Addie would have been 1 at that point.
Yeah. I was just about to say,
she was born in 08.
I only had one kid. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So she would have been going on 2. Yeah.
Okay.
She'd have been going on 2, which is just wild to think about. Another way to think about it too is that back then, to navigate, to do showings, I had a Garmin.
I almost spilled my coffee out. Oh my gosh.
And it had been given to me by my uncle, who was also in sales. So he'd get a new one every year because he always, you'd get the shiny new tech.
Yeah.
And so he gave it to me one year for Christmas. And I was like, oh my gosh, because before then it was literally just paper maps.
Yeah.
To drive around.
I still remember. So 09 was the year that I sold books.
Yep.
And I wasn't fancy enough to have a Garmin. So I would roll into a new town, stop at the first gas station and get a paper map from the gas station.
That's the only way to know.
Because gas stations had maps.
Yeah. Back then, Elon Musk hadn't figured out how to map the world, or whoever did that, Google.
I also had a Nextel flip phone. Do you remember that? They had the walkie-talkie feature.
Totally, 100%. It was like all the rage.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah.
You probably had a BlackBerry.
I never had a BlackBerry, but I had it was a Microsoft product, and it was so clunky. I can't remember what it was, but yeah. Anyway, it was a different world, different age, different world. And so, 2009, I think, was the year, the end of 2008, beginning of 2009 was the year that I feel like my identity shifted in a huge way, where 2007 and 8 were very, like you mentioned, very, very, very tumultuous, both with company and personally. That could be a whole nother podcast. If I'll need a box of tissues, because we'll go through bankruptcy of a company, bankruptcy of me personally. Like it was something that, in the past I always tried to hide, and now I'm like, whatever, it's just part of my story. It is what it is. So that'd be fun to dive into at some point. But suffice it to say, for our purposes today, those years were very confusing, a lot of haze, I think, mentally and emotionally for me. 2007, 8, and trying to figure out who am I and what am I supposed to be doing. Having a newborn and going through both business and personal bankruptcy is a lot of questions get raised about your manhood, your ability to be a husband, your ability to be a father. So just setting the groundwork and the context for the listeners here, it was not a very fun time for me in 07 and 08 and going into 09. There was a moment though, where for those 2 years, I had been bridging the gap, so to speak, with real estate because I did come out of the development world. And so I already understood the contract. I understood the process. I understood the legal from the development side of things. It's kind of like, as an analogy, if you have a for sale by owner, well, if that for sale by owner had 100 properties to sell, they'd probably get pretty good at it, right?
Right.
Being a for sale by owner. So being a developer and putting product on the market, you're kind of a for sale by owner at a pretty big level, right? Yep. So it was myself and 7 buddies from college who . And so those were great years. We learned a lot, but 2007, 8 were unbelievably difficult. At the end of 2008, my belief and identity and the way that I saw myself shifted gears. And it was really my wife who kind of suggested and said, why don't you go into real estate like full time? And I'll never forget it. I was sitting on a stool in my kitchen, kind of with my face in my hands and trying to figure out what am I doing, with my life. And she said that, and something just shifted. It was a prompt. It was something in me that just said, yeah, I'm going all in on this. Like, I actually want to be known as Dave Ness, the real estate broker.
Yeah.
Not for advertising purposes or to, win business with my friends and people like that. But I assumed the identity of a real estate broker at the end of 2008, and nothing has ever been the same since. Because immediately in 2009, did 23 transactions for roughly 7 million in volume, and then 18 and 26. So that was a real starting point for me, was the identity piece, and that's why I think you mentioned it in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because I think that if we're not, just in reflection and to share with listeners, if we're not identifying already as a full-time professional real estate broker who provides amazing service, guidance, and professionalism, if we're not identifying that as that in our hearts and our minds, like in our true self, and we're kind of faking it, I think that comes through to people.
Yeah. Can I share? I wrote down in big letters, you had your kitchen table moment, right? And I think that's important because it made me think of, like the first thing that popped into my head is my friend Andy that I used to work with.
Yep.
He had been in the insurance business for a couple, 2-3 years.
Yep.
Was good, top 5% in the company, won pretty much every incentive that was out there, put up big numbers, was doing really, really well.
Yeah.
And he said everything changed for him when he went to a national sales meeting. He ended up in an elevator with the guy who was like number 1 or number 2 in the company at the time. His name was David. And it was just the two of them, and the door's shut. And David turns to him and goes, hey man, so when are you going to stop effing around with this thing? He was like, what are you talking about? Like,
I'm in the top 5.
It blew his mind. And he was like top 5%, right? Not top 5, but I mean, top 5% at that time was probably
still pretty good.
Really good, right? Like probably, top 30, top 50 out of, over 1,000 salespeople.
Yeah.
But I think David could tell, there's this old saying in sports where only you know when you're giving your best, but everybody else knows when you're not giving your best. Right. And I think that's probably what David was picking up on is like, hey, you have extra gears that you're not really tapping into.
Yep.
And, that might not have been the same way that Megan was saying it to you, but like for Andy, that was his elevator moment. We could also call it his kitchen table moment, right? Where like things shifted and he went from like thinking he was doing pretty good to like, oh, I'm not actually giving my best, and what would it look like to give my best? And then, boom, things took off and he hit another level from there, right?
Yeah, when you talk about going from, one level to the next, no matter what level you're talking about, whether it's talking about starting out and then getting into the next tier, so to speak, whatever that is, or going from, like you said earlier, the 40 transactions a year range to up to like 55, 60, it's actually the same algorithm.
Yeah.
If you're not identifying as that next level of production, of professionalism, of know-how, of confidence, the road probably won't lead to that next level.
That's right.
Until we're identifying as it first.
I think that's also why you see, because it's an identity shift.
Yep.
When you see people make that shift mentally and they now have this new different identity in how they see themselves and how other people see themselves, you also see like, you can look at it like, oh, they broke through to this next level. They broke through this ceiling. Really, it's more of their floor elevated.
Yes.
Because very rarely do they drop below that level once they hit it. So like,
yes,
if we go back through those numbers, once you got to 2012 and you broke 40 for the first time, the next 4 years consecutively, you were well above 40.
Yes.
And you never dipped below that until intentionally you started putting a lot more time into leadership and running a brokerage and building and growing that brokerage, right?
Yep,
but
exactly.
Your floor was higher from that point on.
Yeah, since we're in Colorado and you and I both love skiing and snowboarding, I'm thinking, yeah, it's kind of like when you go to the mountain, you and I usually do a couple blues, warm up, have some fun, and then we'll go black and then double black, and then we just go straight to the back bowls, and now it's just like, And so there's levels there.
And then when you're used to doing back bowls, blues are pretty boring. Like,
right.
What are we doing here?
And so that's what I was going to get at is like that neither one of us identify as a green or blue skier. You could do it. It's fine. Like it's fun and whatever. But I think that there's an identity there. I'm just actually realizing this as we're sitting here talking. Like there's an identity. I want to be on the black diamonds, the double black diamonds. That's kind of who I am, you know, deep down. And by the way, everything we're talking about, of course, is written about. If you as a listener want to check it out, Atomic Habits. I've read it now and I've listened to it as well when I'm working out. It's by James Clear, New York Times bestseller. And this concept is actually talked about and described and unpacked by him really well in chapter 2.
Okay.
So if you guys want to pick it up, it's $20. It's a really, really good read. And I remember reading it and going, yes, that's exactly what has happened. And something that's important here is to remember it's not a box to check. Like improving or increasing or expanding or elevating your identity is not a box to check. It's not a one-time thing. It's an iterative process that should happen over and over and over again. So for example, today, if I fast forward to today, I'm not doing 55 transactions. I'm leading 55 people. Mm-hmm. So my own thought process, to be shoulder to shoulder with the listeners, my thought process right now and my journey is how do I start to identify as a leader of 75 people, 100 people, 150 people, whatever it is. And my hunch is that Thrive as a company will always be somewhat limited by my capacity to move to my next level. And that's scary and very motivating and compelling. And so I guess my point is that I think it would be less helpful to look at this as, okay, cool. So I just need to identify as the next level of production, whatever that is for you. Check the box and I'm done. We're never done. We have to continue to revisit this same pattern over and over and over again. And that's how we expand our worlds.
Let's go back and unpack that a little bit more, right? So you have this kitchen table moment and now your identity shifts to like, okay, I am a full-time real estate. This is what I do.
By the way, there was no table. We couldn't afford one. It was just a stool.
That's even better.
It's just the stool.
That's even better. I love it.
Sorry.
So then something shifted mentally, but then beliefs create actions, actions create results, and results then cement beliefs.
Yes.
Right? And you start this vicious cycle.
Yep.
So what were the tactical actions that then changed once that identity shifted for you?
Yeah, I remember one of them straight away. So we had come off of the development world, right? And so in the development world, when you're selling condos is what we were selling, I would, and this might seem like off track, but I'm going to bring it back. The idea of going to an office never occurred to me. And the idea of working from home wasn't a thing. Not because the technology didn't provide for it or because Zoom didn't exist. It just wasn't a thing in our minds. We would get up in the morning and go to an open house every day.
Interesting.
And it was like, that is your office. Like you're a real estate agent, right? And it's tied back to identity. So there's no value in me as a real estate agent or real estate broker at that time sitting at an office or at home. I knew I needed to be, because I identified this way, talking to as many people as I possibly could. So the equation became, what's the most likely place or what's the most likely environment that I could potentially meet people? Well, probably an open house, right? So this sounds like an exaggeration, but I just did an open house every day for years. And it was my properties, other people's properties, some of the leftover development properties that we still had that we were still trying to sell.
Yeah.
It was a sign and a flag and balloons, like a lot.
So hold on a second. So you're doing an open house on like a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. What time of day are you doing them?
It didn't matter. Like all day, every day. We just wanted to, I just wanted to be with the sign out. Because you think about it and you're like, I think sometimes we overcomplicate things to justify our inactions.
Yeah.
And in real estate, we all know it's a numbers game. It's a sales game. The more people you talk to, the more people you potentially could be in business with and provide a service to. And so it's this idea of like, that has to be all the time. It's not a Saturday thing. It's not a Sunday thing. It's not an afternoon thing. And it's not a begrudge thing either. Like, I got to go do this. It's like, no, that's who I am. That's my thing. That's my way. Right. And so I'd have friends drop in. I'd have, some past clients in later years drop in and just say hi and hang out for an hour while I was sitting there doing an open house, not for 3 hours, but for 9.
Yeah.
This is my office, right?
Yep.
Because then, and I know I'm getting a little tactical, but the point is that at that point, if no one comes into the open house, then it's the same thing as you sitting in the office all day.
Correct.
I was making phone calls. I was doing emails. I was designing flyers.
Were you buying your own leads at this point or not yet?
I started with Zillow in 2010.
Okay.
Yeah. I started at the end of 2010, about halfway through the year, 2010. I started with Zillow and started spending, I think it was $59 a month. And I thought it was a scam. I was like, this is such BS. So that's kind of weird. That's another way to date it. Not only did I have a Garmin, but I was in real estate before Zillow existed as a lead generation.
That's hilarious.
Company. They existed, but they were just doing the Zestimate. That's all they were doing back then.
So then how long did you keep doing the everyday open house thing?
It was pretty much all the way through 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, it was that was kind of my way. And then along with that, we had developed through the open house model, both as a developer and as a broker. I was maniacal about capturing information. I got pretty good at it.
Okay.
So from 2009 through 2011, while doing open house, I cold called every day, all day, and kind of wrote my own scripts and stole some stuff that I've heard from other people. Just kind of put together kind of a way of engaging with people. Funny story, I'll end up doing my 5th or 6th transaction with a gentleman named Cale and his wife Dorothy and their family. Back then, none of us had any kids. I had my 1-year-old, but I called Cale. I called him for like 3 years, every month. I would leave him voicemails, and he would never answer. I just kept calling. And finally, at the end of year 2, beginning of year 3, he finally answered, which shocked me. I was like, oh my God, I got so many notes on this guy for voicemails I've left, emails that I've sent to him. Text messaging really wasn't a thing back then. And so he answered, I'll never forget, he goes, Dave Ness. And I went, oh God, I'm probably going to get reamed out right now. And he said something like, hey, if you're half as committed as a broker for me on the street as you are trying to get in touch with me,
hell yeah,
I'll bet on you.
Yeah.
And he's like, we are going to buy, and you're my guy. You've been calling me for 3 years. It's freaking crazy.
That's insane. Right? So when you're cold calling, I hear cold calling and I immediately go FSBOs and expireds. Is that who you were calling, or?
No, I was calling the list. I was calling the list that we had generated through open houses.
Oh, got it.
And so you
would just call back through.
You just keep calling. Yeah. Because a lot of times, with open houses, it's sometimes a longer sale. And I just knew that I need to either be talking to somebody in person, hence my open house strategy, or I needed to be calling people, like if it was storming outside or if it was a slow day or whatever. Sitting there on a computer at an open house doesn't benefit me at all. But double leverage is huge, because now I'm both have the potential to engage with people in person, at least the potential. I'm setting up the environment to be able to do that, or being proactive. So one's reactive, one's proactive, right?
Yep.
Like the open house thing, you put a sign out and put a lot of signs out, you advertise it, and then you kind of hope for the best. It's kind of like marketing.
Yep.
But the cold calling thing and actually calling a list and keeping in touch, that's within my control. I can sit there and go, I'm not going home unless I've called 100 people.
Yeah. So then let's fast forward to 2012.
Yep.
Because in 2011, you did 26 transactions. 2012, you went to 43.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big jump. What changed from 11 to 12 that you could point to that accounted for such a big jump?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. So 9, 10, and 11 were very much unpacking for myself. What is this industry? Another way to say that is, as I'm going through my 23 transactions in 2009, and then 18 in 2010, and then 26, I was not doing that just with my head on the shelf. I was doing it and like almost third eye. I was almost third eye watching myself do it and taking notes and going, what's common among the responses of the people that I'm calling? What's common when we get to the inspection? What is predictable when the closing rolls around? Well, like what are the things that just keep on occurring over and over and over, whether I'm working with a brand new buyer, an experienced buyer, a $200,000 person, a $2 million person, like what are the things that are predictable and that I can kind of bank on? And from that, I extracted, just from that experience, okay, so here's what I know about this industry, and here's what I know about the client, and here's what I know about the co-op broker and how they're going to act and how they're not going to act and what to expect there. So with that, there's a bedrock that gets built, I think, in the first 24 to 36 months. Some people move through it a little bit faster. Took me about 36 months, somewhere around there. I think there's a bedrock that I've witnessed both with myself and other people where 24 to 36 months is figuring out how the industry works, how the business works, and then how you show up in that. So you as a person are going to bring your own personality, whether you have a script or not, whether you have a process or not. Ours is pretty dialed. It's paint by numbers. But still, people are going to step into it with their own presence, their own self, their own voice order, their own personality, right? Mm-hmm. So figuring out who you are within that, and then that becomes the foundation or the bedrock upon which you go, okay, I have that figured out. I'm not trying to understand what the client is feeling anymore. I'm not trying to navigate hard conversations with a seller because they have to decrease their price. I already know all of that. Been there, done that. Now I've become way more efficient, way more effective. I can move the needle with less effort.
Yeah.
Right. In those later years. And so you see it in my own stats where it goes from 23, 18, and 26 to 43, 54, 51. It was almost like in 2012, I gave myself permission to be graduating to the next level. I gave myself permission to experience that kind of success.
Okay.
Right. And some of that too, I might be moving on to another topic, but some of that too is when people ask, how do you move to another level? One of the things that I think is really important is to prove to yourself, and put self in quotes there. It's like you have a car, you have a laptop, you have a phone, and you have a self. It's a possession. And I think we have to prove to ourselves that we've earned it. Mm. And so there's this sense in which when success comes quick and when success comes easy, which sometimes it does for all of us, that can actually be our biggest detriment. And I can't remember who said it, but the phrase of yesterday's success is the biggest threat to today's success.
Oh, that's Jocko.
Is it Jocko Willink? Yeah, mm-hmm. It doesn't surprise me. And that's so true, especially if that success came easy. Because your inner self, your inner voice is questioning, but do you really know this? Did you really earn it? Did you really come up through the ranks, in a difficult way? Did you really prove yourself? Or do you just have some numbers that don't really align and don't really match up with the effort that you put in and how you showed up?
Right, or how much of it is luck? How much of it is the market,
Interest rates, market, lead flow, open house, whatever. Versus on the other end of the spectrum, when you've grinded, when your knees and elbows are skinned up, when your hands are calloused, when you're tired, when you've been up at midnight, when you've gotten up the next morning at 5 a.m., when you've done those things over and over and over consistently to the point of just, to a very high degree, there's something within your psyche that is very strong.
Right.
It's been exercised a lot.
Yeah.
And so then that bleeds over when you're talking to people, when you're negotiating, when you're doing a listing appointment, when you're doing a buyer's appointment. There's something very weighty about that doesn't even have to be said. People just look at you and know in your eyes that you're here to do business. And like doing a listing presentation at that point when there's two other brokers involved, it's like, whatever.
Right.
We both know you're going to work with me.
Yeah.
And you go into that, with a very, very elevated degree of confidence. And so that's a huge difference between going from, roughly the 20 range up into the 35 and 40 range.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wrote down, it's funny, I wrote down confidence, I wrote down belief.
Yes.
You use the word earn. I would also use the word deserve.
Yes.
Right? Like
I love that.
Working so hard that beyond a shadow of a doubt that you deserve a level of success.
Yes.
At your craft.
Like I belong here.
Yeah.
This is where I belong.
Yeah, where there is no imposter syndrome.
No.
You just know you're outworking
yes.
everybody else, right? And it's funny because you were probably outworking everybody else for a pretty long period of time before the results came to back that up. Like, not that you were doing bad, you were doing good in a relative sense.
Yep.
right? But then, things went to a whole new level.
Yep.
I actually, while we were prepping for this, one of the things that I wrote down was probably one of the blessings you had at that time being a solo act was you weren't showing up to an office, you weren't showing up to a Tuesday sales meeting, and you didn't have a bunch of people doing worse than you to compare yourself to.
Which sometimes can be a detriment.
Yeah, right. Because it means you also didn't have people doing significantly better than you to compare yourself to.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But one is unbelievably valuable because I think of the story you've shared with me many times when back in your college days when you were selling books and you go, follow somebody like Dave Rosen.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And just realizing it's like the guy's not even doing the same job
totally
as me.
100%.
Right. This is ridiculous how much better he's doing. And yet he's not working any harder than.
No, in fact, he was working much less.
Right. But then the same thing can also be true is you would see orgs and these orgs were perpetually underperforming orgs because there was no rabbit. There was no consortium of super high producers. The top producers were doing 5,000-6,000 units in a summer.
Right.
And so if you were a first year or second year and you were doing whatever, you're like, well, I'm doing pretty good compared to everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and we have a tendency to do that as human beings.
Totally. So then you sort of take the foot off the gas and you're like, okay, cool. I'm
good.
I belong.
Yeah.
Where if that gap gets too big and you feel like you don't belong, you do things to close that gap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's
100%.
why you would see other orgs where it's like, oh, you only did 5,000 or 6,000.
Yeah.
Everybody here does 10.
Totally.
Right. And you were a part of one of those orgs. Surprise, surprise. What else going from 26 to 43? What else would you want to share there? And then if you look at the next year going from 43 to 54,
yeah,
was there a whole lot that changed for you breaking 50 for the first time?
Yeah.
Or was it a lot of the same things you were doing in 12 and just more of the same in 13?
Yep. I got in when I was my best year at 54. That was my only experience because I played sports, but I'm not an athlete. So that whole idea of flow state that athletes talk about, that year that I did 54 was definitely a year of flow state. No doubt about it. So buyer presentations, listing presentations, phone calls, negotiations, it was all very much, in flow. I know I'm repeating myself, but I probably worked less mentally in 2013 with 54 transactions than I ever had.
Oh, can I?
Mentally.
Yeah. Can I? So it's funny. I've heard other people talk about this.
Yep.
I distinctly remember a year being at an annual awards ceremony and hearing there was two girls that finished neck and neck, number 1 and number 2, and it literally came down to the last day of the last week of the year.
Oh, jeez.
And the number 1 girl beat the number 2 girl on the last day.
Okay.
And so they gave them both a speech.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and the number 2 girl said, "This was my highest production year, but it was the easiest year for me because mentally I didn't get up every day or every week and think about going to work. I just went to work."
Yeah.
Right. And it was like, oh,
Yeah.
It's interesting. Mentally, it was her easiest year because she wasn't constantly fighting or having to decide over and over again what she was going to do that day. It was just automatically decided. And then she just went and did it.
Yeah.
And that was actually much easier mentally than the years where maybe she sold a lot, but she took more time off. And it was this constant back and forth of having to decide over and over again, am I going to do this or not?
Yes. You're stuck in the quagmire.
Yeah.
Or the sand pit of just, I don't know. Should I give the effort today? I don't know if I feel like it. I'm not really committed 100% to this whole trajectory. Maybe there's another way. Maybe there's an easier way. Maybe there's a different brokerage. Maybe there's a different team. Just on and on and on with the mental gymnastics.
Yep.
And when that switches to, nope, I'm here. This is what I'm doing. This is who I am. This is my family. This is my team. This is my company. This is my brand. This is it. There's some magic in that.
Yeah.
No matter what company you're at.
And it's funny, I bet we could pull top producing people from dozens of different industries and it would probably be the same thing over and over and over and over. Get that all-in mentality.
It's the all-in.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I wrote this down too, just because you asked earlier, what else, going from doing good, 25, 30 transactions to up into the 40s and 50s. Tactically speaking, if the listeners are going, these are all great kind of strategic, mental, identify and whatnot. But tactically speaking, another thing to know, the good news is that being excellent in one area of your life
Oh, yeah.
has roommates. It has an effect. That excellence tends to seep into other areas. It's contagious, in other words, in a very good way. So if you're thinking, well, I really want to get awesome at being a real estate broker. I want to go from whatever level I'm at. Maybe that's for you for 12 transactions, you want to go to 24. If you're at 24, maybe you want to go to 36, whatever it is. I almost can guarantee that if you start committing to excellence in another area of your life, that will have a profoundly good and very powerful impact on your real estate brokerage career as well.
Yeah.
And so take health if you want. You could take reading and studying, your faith, relationships, sports, whatever it is that you want to become really, really profoundly good at, and start pushing into that. Or maybe you already are. And maybe you're like, yeah, I'm pretty dang good. Let's take health, for example. I've got a rigorous workout schedule. I go to bed at a great time, wake up early, have a great diet, the whole thing. I feel energized. Keep doing that. See if there's some of that excellence that can be imported, and it will be imported back over into your real estate brokerage career, because whatever you're doing there and the habits that you're developing there and the identity that you're developing there, the good news is it's the exact same path, the same tools, the same mentality, the same mindset that will get you from bench pressing, 150 pounds to 350 pounds.
Yeah.
It'll be the same thing on the real estate brokerage side. And so the path for people that have already experienced excellence and like it is going to be very familiar, and that's good news.
Yeah. Yeah. It's ironic how often that is something physical.
Yeah.
Right. And something very measurable, like running a 10K, running a half marathon, running a marathon, doing a triathlon, doing a half Ironman, doing a 30-day hot yoga challenge. Right? Like, it can be a pretty wide variety of different stuff, but it's uncanny how many times it is something physical. It's something finite. It's something that takes planning and discipline and execution. And then those are the things that spill over.
Yes.
Not just, I'm already in pretty good shape and today looked like yesterday and tomorrow's going to look just like today.
No.
It's almost like there has to be something intentional that changes. And then you do that. And the hard part is you do that and then you got to find something else.
Yes. Which actually is, it's a really interesting segue to what I was going to mention, which you've mentioned before with me and just other conversations, the Peter Principle.
Yeah.
I read about it yesterday again in an article. I was studying some EOS, which is the Entrepreneur's Operating System for listeners who wanted to know. And it's by Gino Wickman. It's a whole program that we run Thrive off of. But the Peter Principle, to kind of summarize it, is that inevitably, and you might be able to add to this, but inevitably people in an organization will get promoted to the level of their incompetence.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the sales world, of course, if someone's really, really good at selling real estate, there'll be some brokerages, and we've done this as well, who look at that individual and say, well, because they're really, really good at selling real estate, maybe they should be a sales leader.
Yeah.
Maybe they should be a team leader. Maybe they should be a mentor. Maybe they should be, whatever. And I find a really interesting correlation between the Peter Principle and E-Myth. There's something there that's very similar.
Super similar.
Yeah. It's tangibly similar.
Yeah, that's a good connection.
Yeah. But where I was going with this is, so that's the Peter Principle, is that, and it's true, like if you think about, as a listener, if you think about any organization you've ever been involved in, you've probably either been or seen your coworkers get promoted or elevated because they were doing really good at their role. Then they get promoted into another role that they're not good at because it's a different skill set, it's a different mindset, it's a different way of engaging the business. And so then they're capped and they're there and oftentimes miserable because they're not in their sweet spot anymore.
Right.
And
everybody around them is miserable too.
Right. Like you don't know what you're doing. And the imposter syndrome comes in and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's probably a whole other episode. But I think the way that it connects here is that, interestingly, I think as a broker, as a real estate broker, going from 12 transactions-ish to 24 to 36 and then up to 50 and beyond, I think part of the journey is identifying that you're going to be repeatedly engaged in the Peter Principle.
Mm.
Because when you go from 0 transactions, none, brand new, which is pretty common here at Thrive, to 12, when on the path to 12, when you're doing 6, 7, 8, every single time you're being elevated to a new level of incompetence.
Yeah.
By your client. Because it's like, in other words, everything's new.
Yeah.
You've never heard that objection before. You've never heard this negotiation before.
Yeah.
It's new legally. It's new from a negotiations standpoint. The process is new. You've never worked with a cash buyer. You've never worked with $1 million buyer. You've never worked with a foreclosure seller. You've never worked with
An investor who wants to do 10 transactions.
Everything is new.
Yep.
And so because of that, every single time, I'm going to say within the first like 20 transactions, 20 to 24 transactions,
yep,
you're actually being elevated every single time to the level of your incompetency.
Yeah.
And that's part of the journey. But I think to know that up front and to be okay with that, especially if you're coming from an industry where you were there for a long period of time. I think about Nate. And when we hired Nate, and he's been with us for 6 years now.
Yeah.
When I hired him, he came from deep background in industrial windows, right? And so he knew everything there was to know. He had led a 120-person organization. We'll have him on the episode at some point. 120-person organization. He was 100% responsible for the P&L for that department. I mean, just very, very tenured businessman, right? And so we had to have the conversation of, hey, it's going to be a hard journey going from the top of the totem pole where you know everything
to being the rookie all over again.
to setting up open house signs on the corner while people drive by and splash you in the puddles and laugh at you.
Yep.
Like that's going to be a really difficult thing. And you're going to be promoted to the level of your incompetency over and over and over again for those first 20 transactions. If we're starting out in real estate, or if you're already in real estate and you're thinking, well, I'm already doing 20 to 24 transactions, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to go a certain level of competency doing 20 transactions to 40. It might not be the process or, dealing with a foreclosure, dealing with $1 million client, because all of those have been done. You might be being promoted to the level of your incompetency mentally from a mindset standpoint. You've never had to exercise being a 40-unit producer belief system before. It's all brand new to you, right? And so I think we do well to identify that and say and name that and go, okay, so this journey is going to have promotions to levels of incompetency. So what does that mean? What do we then do with that? Well, I think we have to pay really close attention to that and make sure that we're partnered with other people who are a little bit above us, a little bit beyond us, a little bit more advanced, who have been there, done that, seen that.
Yep.
That can come in the form of mentorship. Personally, that can come in the form of books. I don't know James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, but he's quickly becoming one of my mentors, right? Just by studying his work, and he talks to me every morning,
right?
Right. It can come through podcasts, it can come through coaching, it can come in a lot of different ways. But that's a really important piece to recognize, because we can get comfortable, I guess is my point, in like the 20 to 25 unit transaction realm, and thinking that the same mentality, the same mindset, and even the same skill set that got us there is going to get us to 40 is a mistake.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be promoted to the level of our incompetency as we go through this kind of evolution.
Was it important to you to get to those new levels, or was it something that just happened? Do you know what I'm asking? Because there are people who get to a certain level of production and they're kind of sitting there for a couple, 2-3 years in a row. And I think a good question is, hey, is it really important to you to go from, 24 to 30 plus or to 40?
Yeah.
And if so, why do you want that?
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes A, that's not what people want, or B, I think they want it, but they don't sit down and figure out like, why is that important to me? And what would that mean to me if I accomplish that level?
Yeah.
Right. So was that intentional, or was it just something that happened while you were chasing other things?
Yes. Yeah, there was an evolution of intentionality that actually ended up happening. And what I mean by that is for the first 3 years, 3 or 4, I was strictly focused on the work. I mean, maniacally focused on the work. It was open houses, it was cold calls, it was following up. Back then I used a platform called Top Producer, which I think is still in existence. They totally need to take it behind the barn and shoot it. But it's similar to whatever CRM that you as a listener are using. We use Follow Up Boss. So just unbelievably focused on the work. I think I imported that from our experience with Southwestern back in college, the internship that Rob and I both had. I mean, they preached that pretty heavily, right? Like focus on the work, not the results.
Yep.
And so you get this whole idea of the input, not the output, or the lead measures, not the lag measures, because the input, the activity, the work, the lead measures puts out the results. And that's really true. So I believed that. I harnessed that and was just like, that's what I'm doing. However, when I started to get into like the 40 transaction range, I knew at that point, even though there was no brokerage, there was still an entire Denver industry. So I knew at that point that I was highly competitive in terms of other brokers and what they were doing. I knew other brokers that were doing, 5, 6, 7 transactions. And I knew some that were doing fine. They were doing 20, 25. But I also knew that there was an elite group in the greater Denver area. I knew their names. I still know their names.
Right.
That were doing like 40 plus.
Yep.
And no one ever said it. There's not a name for it. It wasn't called like the 40 plus group or whatever. There was no awards banquet.
They probably have a secret get together like every month and they just never invited you.
Underground.
Screw that guy.
I just start my own. But I knew that existed. And I knew that I wanted to continue to identify as being excellent. Right. And I knew that if I was going to try to identify as being excellent and doing 25 transactions from an industry standpoint, that wasn't true. Like that it just wasn't,
Yeah.
So I knew that I had to be in the 40 to 50 range to really be in kind of I'll just call it like an elite status. And for whatever reason, at that time, that was really important to me. And so it was less about the money. The money was awesome, of course. It was more about just being able to say, yep, I'm in that group, even though that group didn't exist. There was no meeting, there was no annual banquet, there was no nothing. But I wanted to test myself. I wanted to challenge myself, and I wanted to be able to do that so that when I was falling asleep at night, I could say, I achieved the pinnacle of residential real estate brokerage in Denver. In the United States, I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe there's other people in other MSAs that are doing 100 transactions and would laugh at 50. But I knew here that was super meaningful. Lon Welsh, who is, I've done a lot of investing with Lon, had me to a mastermind at one point. There was only 6 of us. And he just dropped this, and I'll never forget it. He was like, if whoever in the room, if you're doing 50 transactions or more, you should be really proud of that because you're in the top 1% in the entire state and probably even, higher than that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so there was something there that I was like, yes, like that's how I want to be known. That's how I want to be. That's how I want to know myself as well. I didn't walk around saying it. I didn't get a T-shirt that said, I sell 50 transactions here. But it just internally for me, it was important. And the other side of it, the underbelly of it was, to be totally honest, I was really, really incredibly, terribly, pathetically, sorrowfully bad with money back then. And so there was a financial component where, because I was promoted financially to the level of my incompetency with accounting, it was bad. It was really bad. It caused a lot of stress in my marriage. Still talk to Megan about it today if you want. Made a lot of dumb decisions because at that time it was all about the identity and the production, not about the money. And so the money to me was like fun tickets. If you've ever watched Wolf of Wall Street. And so that it was a never-ending sieve of I gotta put more in here because I was doing really dumb stuff with it. Investing, but really dumb investments. So I wasn't like having parties and blowing it that way. Other people do that. Mine was.
Did you invest in that government experiment where they put shrimp on treadmills?
No, but I'm interested. So there was a financial component there that I needed to kind of pay attention to, and thankfully I've fixed that since then because more conservative on that front.
It's not a great way to operate where you're working hard to earn money to pay off debt.
Yeah, 100%.
It's
Yeah,
not a great motivator long term.
No.
So there was one other. Hold on, I'm looking at my notes here. So one other thing I wanted to hit as we wrap up.
While you're looking at that, I'm gonna throw this out.
You're probably gonna say what I was trying to find.
Well, I wrote this down because I think we're sitting here talking about going from
I found it.
one kind of production level to another is really kind of the thrust of this episode. And there's so many different directions we could take with it. But one thing you said in the beginning was when people get stuck, sometimes it's hard to self-diagnose why are you stuck, right? So if you're stuck at 12, 14 transactions trying to get to 24, or if you're stuck at 24 trying to get to 30 or 50 or whatever it is, sometimes it can be difficult to self-diagnose why you're stuck. And I think one of the precursor questions that is most important would be to ask, do you think you're stuck?
Mm.
Or are you good? Because if you don't think you're stuck, if you're not wrestling with being stuck and trying to improve or go to a next level, then the whole content of this episode and some of the things that we talk about at Thrive are not helpful. So the very first step in figuring out how to get to the next level and get yourself unstuck is to identify that, yes, I believe that I am stuck. And by virtue of seeing that and naming that and believing that, you're already saying, I'm stuck because I want to get to X. But if you're listening to this going, yeah, maybe I am stuck, but I'm just going to hover around 24. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Then you're not stuck.
Right.
Then do you. Just keep doing it. Keep doing 24, and that's freaking fantastic. It's still awesome. There's an interesting question that can get skipped over too quickly, and that is, are you stuck? Do you think you're stuck? And then naming that yourself.
Yeah. I wrote down, there's a huge difference in intentional or unintentional about your level of production.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I found so this is a good segue into that. We'll wrap up with this. You said something interesting when we were prepping for this, hey, one of the things I want to share with people is at the end of the day, there are no levels.
Yeah.
So talk more about that and then we'll close.
Yeah. It's funny because we've sat here for 45 minutes or an hour talking about levels. Listeners, if you've watched The Matrix, right? There's that scene where Neo is trying to bend the spoon. He's trying to bend the spoon with his mind. And it turns out, from a coaching standpoint, when the person in the room is trying to tell him, the reason that you can't bend the spoon is because you're so focused on the spoon. And what you have to realize is there is no spoon. And so ironically, we're sitting here talking about all these levels and getting to the next level. But I think undergirding it all, the real power, the real magic that I definitely experienced going through these years was getting to the point of not caring about the levels anymore. And even looking at it and going, there are no levels. There's only the endless pursuit of excellence. That's all it is. And in some years, it worked exceedingly well. And in some years, it worked okay. And in some years, I went down. So 23 to 18 and then back up to 26. But undergirding it all was the journey, actually, for me, unlocking this idea that, hey, there are no levels. Every single level, even at Thrive that we talk about, 12, 18, 24, well, we just made that up. We just made it up because we said, there's reasoning behind it financially and everything to live in Denver. You got to make a certain amount of money just to survive and do well.
Yeah, to have your scoreboard match up with your identity, all that different stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely, it wasn't random. It was definitely very calculated the way that we landed on that. But nonetheless, we created it. We materialized it. But in the end, when we really think about it, we go, there really are no levels. There's only the endless pursuit of excellence. And upon that path, you're gonna achieve some amazing things. You're gonna have some amazing failures. But if we see that and believe that and go, that's really what I'm doing at the end of the day. These are just mechanisms, these levels, so to speak, 12, 18, 24, and beyond 50 and all that, are mechanisms to help us demarcate where we are on that path and if we're making an advancement.
Yeah.
But the point is, the path is most important, and setting your compass to excellence and engaging that every day with everything that we do, both in work here at Thrive, in brokerage, as well as other areas of our lives. And I think that's the thrust of it, is if there was one thing that everybody could take away, I think it would be that.
Beautiful. What a great spot to end. Dude, this has been really good.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been fun.
I'm jacked up about this.
Right on.
Well, there's a lot of good tangents that we touched on that we can come back and revisit in other episodes.
Yeah,
but
part 2 maybe.
Yeah, but I love this. So thanks everyone for listening. Thanks, Dave, for making time for this on a Wednesday morning.
Heck yeah, this is awesome.
And cheers. Until next time.
Right on. Cheers.